So last night, I kind of began losing my voice. So if at any point I break up into interpretive dance, you know what happened. But it made me think about a conversation I had with my daughter, where she decided around a couple of months ago, that she was going to sing the national anthem at the swim meet at school, at neighborhood. And it's pretty incredible, right? She's 9, and she's like, I'm going to learn the national anthem. She went to her music teacher, and she wanted to learn how to sing it. And then the night before, we had some friends over to the house, and she was running and singing and having a big party like we did last night. And then the morning that she was going to sing the national anthem, she came up to me and she was like, Dad, I'm losing my voice. What do I do? And it was the first time she was going to do this. And I was like, oh my God. And like I woke up with her and I took her and I told her about this Mexican singer named Juan Gabriel, that whenever he begins his concerts, his voice just sounds like a little toad from somewhere. And at the end of it, it's just the most beautiful thing you've ever heard. And the other thing I told her is the other thing you need some warm milk so you can get your voice back. So last night, after I got back to the hotel, I was talking to them and I was telling my daughter, I'm losing my voice and all of that. And first, the wonder that I can be seeing and talking with her through these things that we can hold in our hands. And then I put my phone down, and 10 minutes later, my daughter sent me a text message, and she was like, Dad, what the thing you need for tomorrow is some warm milk so you can get your voice back. So, Joanna? Okay, that helps. Here we go. So I want to start with a few questions about all of this. And by all of this, I mean this whole wisdom, compassion, shenanigans, just everything that we're seeing today. The first question is, what does all of this mean for me? What does it mean at work and at home? What does it mean for the people I serve, the products I create, my unique contribution to the world? Now, as Christine mentioned, the first time I came to one of these wisdom things, I was a reluctant engineer, dragged by a friend, sitting in the back row, pretty apprehensive about all this hippie stuff. But at the time, and when I'm bringing the numbers to the present, today, there will be 350 million photos uploaded on Facebook. These are people sharing with their friends. The number is now 1.25, the number is now 1.3 billion people that we serve. And all of these people, they're sharing these photos with their friends. And at the time, when I went to my first Wisdom conference, the number of reports was far exceeding our capacity to support it. There were just so many of them. And not only that, but once we reviewed them, we were only able to act on a very small percentage of them, because we'll get a picture like this. This is Churro, by the way. Every example that you will see is paraphrased. And this is my husky. It's a Mexican Siberian husky. Reported for hate speech. Not kidding. A picture like this, reported for harassment. And we're looking at all these reports and we don't know what's going on until we realize that in most cases, the person reporting the picture was in the picture and had been shared by one of their friends. And then we went oh my God, what's going on here? Is people are sharing something and other people are being distressed by it. So what do we do? I mean, in some cases, it's not our place. It's not Facebook's place to take a picture like this down. So what do? You get people talking to each other. That's the great thing to do. You put up an empty message box that you can send. But think about it for a moment. You're feeling embarrassed. You're feeling sensitive about your image in this. And then somebody puts up an empty message box for you to send a message. What are you going to type in? Turns out, not much. Only 20% of people would send messages. And, it wasn't really helping people. At that time, thanks to Soren, I got introduced to some people at Stanford and then Berkeley who are studying the science of compassion. How does our brain work with compassion? And one of the things they told me is, if you see that somebody's experiencing an emotion, then there's a circuit in your head that says, oh, fellow human, I want to help. So we did something which is really crazy considering we're a huge website. We asked people how they felt. We told people, I'm in this photo and I don't like it. I'm how does it make you feel? And we gave these answers, embarrassing, saddening, inappropriate. And we added this other so people type in their own thing because we're trying to make sense of this. 50% of people would select one of the emotions. 34% would select other and type something in. And what would they type in? And note that we designed this with the best of computer science and design theory, that you want to make things simple and elegant. Well, what people would type in is, it's embarrassing. So in a feat of great engineering, version 2 was, and what happened? Now, if any of you work on online stuff, a shift of 1 or 2% on something is huge, right? This is 78% completion. And then we said, okay, let's send a message, and we got together, and our first version of the message was like, hey, can you take the photo down, please? Turns out that with our scientific partners, I'll mention in a moment, that there's this whole science of politeness about how you express things and you write messages. So it's polite communication. It's been well studied. And so we crafted this message, hey, Jake, addressing somebody by name. By the way, if you have a nickname, so much better. This photo is a little bit embarrassing to me, and I would prefer that other people don't see it on Facebook. Very different from that photo that you shared. I need you to take that down, right? It's a very different conversation. And then, would you please take it down? Turns out, would you please performs 4% better than would you mind? Now, one of the really funny things about this is you read emails by anybody who works on this, and all of our emails are now like, hey, Alice, there's a thing that's going on. And would you please do X, and would you please do Y? And again, it's coming back. But when we added that, we went from 20% of people being able to send a message to 60% of people send a message. Right? That's just like, yeah. And this happens nearly 4 million times a week. As far as we can tell, like 100 million people, give or take, have used this so far. Right? And so you try to think about these ideas that we see today, and you wonder, how do they ground, how do they apply in the things that we do? Well, this is applied compassion. Right? Somebody was saying, how does technology facilitate compassion? Well, we're trying. You can try. We all can do it. And it's reasonably straightforward, but you do have to measure it. Now, why is it so important to say how we feel? And there's two lenses on this. I'm going to start with the scientific lens, and then I'm going to move to the wisdom lens. Emotion serve rich social functions. When you talk to somebody, you see it in their eyes, you hear it in their voice, you can feel it in their touch. And when you do that, like you get insight for yourself, and you get insight about them, and that kind of emotion communication increases empathy, perspective taking, and in turn, kind of community responding. We've evolved these mechanisms to get along. Now, when you think about what our devices do, is they lose most of these things. Right? They don't communicate the inflection in your tone, the intention, the thing you were trying to say, the things that you were doing. But also, from the moment of somebody responding to a photo where you feel bad about, when you think about it from a mindfulness or awareness standpoint, is you're having a response, you're activated, you're like feeling stressed from looking at the picture. And then you go like, well, how is this making me feel? And then you express that. And there's a moment of awareness of how you're making you feel, and then choosing the actions that you take. We have some interesting findings that are brand new to the world that I'll talk about at the end of the talk. And emotion works, and there's lots of graphs there, but at the punchline of that graphic is, if you say you're embarrassed, people understand, they're sympathetic. If you say it's inappropriate, they want to avoid conflict. People will read the messages, the emotion will be communicated and serve its purpose. But one of the most surprising findings in all of this is we asked the person who shared the photo, how do you feel about this friend that just told you that the thing that you just shared was embarrassing to them? And the answer was 65% positive and 25% neutral. Like 90% of your friends, they wanted to know that they have done something that's upsetting to you. And when we did this, we said, like, will it work in other parts of the world? We got told many times, look, you're going to take this to Israel. It's not going to work because it's very direct. It's like, you will take the picture down now. Or you go to Japan and people don't express their emotions. That's not true. Data. This is, I think, the first time there's like real data from millions of conversations all over the world that if you express an emotion, the likelihood that somebody's going to respond or take down the photo varies by the emotion you express. The likelihood that you will send a message, 60 to 80% all over the world, even in cultures like Japan where you say new emotion doesn't get expressed. This is a fundamental mechanism that we're finding. And what are the conversations that happen as a result of this? Hey, Alice, this photo that you posted me is really embarrassing. Half the time it's like, oh, I didn't mean to embarrass you, so I'm going to delete it. Other times it's like, oh my God, you look amazing, and you have nothing to worry about. And sometimes it's like, no, I look amazing. I didn't even see you in the picture. And this is like one of the really interesting things about this work is that it's people in relationship with each other, right? And you get to see each other and hear each other and facilitate connection and understanding. The right outcome is not for the photo to be deleted. The right outcome is for there to be a dialogue where people understand each other. So this I learned. I'm trying to kind of bring it back home and on this. I learned how to write email. Hey, Alice, there's something about this, blah, blah, blah. I learned that people who read your electronic messages probably have absolutely no idea how you feel. Like you write something and you're feeling these emotions and you feel the emotions are in the email, and then they get the email and they have their own emotions and they're not reading your email. When they know how you feel, a different conversation happens. So ensuring that that connection is successfully made is incredibly important, because you and we and all of us, we want to know how we make people feel so that we can be in community with them and in relationship with them over time. And I certainly encourage everybody to look up Dr. Keltner from Berkeley, because he's been studying the science of how we communicate emotion to each other and we have evolved to be good to each other over time. But all of this is underlying the principle that I picked up from one of my wisdom teachers, which is people need to be seen, met, and heard. And when I get home from one of these days and I look at my daughter and she's trying to communicate something, I've kind of learned to stop and see, like, what does it mean to fully see you? What does it mean to meet you? Like, there's things I want to say, things I want to do, but I want to come up to you, I want to hear you. What does it mean to hear you? I understand that this is what you're experiencing. And so it's an interesting practice to bring back at home or to bring back at work in one-on-ones. Now you go the other class of photos. What do you get? Hate speech, nudity, porn, graphic violence. These are the categories that we see from our Western lens, from a company lens, as the things that you need to make sure are not on your site. We have a responsibility to the community to keep up that. But it turns out that we found that only 5% of the things that were getting submitted for these categories had actually anything to do with the categories. So we went and we asked, so what's actually going on here? And what did we find? Annoying, tasteless, things that insult religion. In the US, huge things that don't have your permission to be posted, insulting politicians, actors, anti-nationalism. In India, you don't make fun of the cricket team. Well, actually, you do make fun of the cricket team, but people get really upset about it. In Brazil, it's the soccer team. And here, like, it's a sport, you know, to make fun of celebrities. It's normal, different cultures, different places. And so we found, like, what is it that you want to build for people that are in these circumstances? Well, it turns out that all over the world, we have this map of, like, you know, in India, anti-secessionism is really important. You want to keep the country stuff, the religion stuff really respectful. In the US, it's like insulting humor and permission. By the way, porn all over the world. And so we added this special thing for each of the countries that is actually aiming to hear the people who use Facebook to understand the issues that they're having depending on their culture. In the US, this doesn't have my permission to be posted. And this is in a culture of free speech where you should be able to take a photo and share it because, you know, that's your right. This is why dialogue is so important. 30% of things in the US go into this category. This is annoying or distasteful humor, things that you find morally transgressive. You go to India, this insults someone or something I care about. Insults a leader, a politician, an actor. This insults my country. This disrespects my religion or beliefs. Language is so important. Going to people and understand what it is that they need can make such a big difference. What did we find? We went from like 5%, well, porn's always accurate because you know it when you see it. But we found that things like when we go to language right for religion, we would get like 100% accuracy. But you will notice that we found like these categories that weren't quite accurate. And this is one of those things where you actually look at the data and you go like, man, we need to go back and get the language right. And when we get the language right, we went back to these numbers and we found that we get like 70 to 80% accuracy once we tweaked to like this respects my religion. We actually, this insults my religion, and we changed it to this disrespects my religion, and that had like a 10-point shift. Language is so important. And so we're in this cycle where we have some research and we want to understand kind of the science and the wisdom and the tradition behind these things. We create a product, we put it out there and we measure it to see what comes up, and then we start all over again because almost all of the time we get it wrong the first time around. But as a manager, I come back and when I have my one-on-ones, I try to figure out what is the issue that you're having. I know I have my list of issues and concerns as a manager, but how can I have an active conversation with the person I'm supporting where I hear them and understand them and meet them with the language that they use, the model that they have, the things that are important for them so they can effectively support them, and it's been a big practice. So what did I learn out of this work? Language is so important. What the people you serve need is very different from what you think they need. When we began this, they said, well, we have to ask people, and people said, nah, you know, you can't trust people, they're going to game the system. They don't. You can trust people to tell you what they need, what you need to hear. What's important to you might be really offensive for others, and it happens all over the world. But in order to make a program like this work in a company, You need to have data, and you need to be open to when you get it wrong and to what the data has to teach you, because sometimes the principles don't fly. The last area I wanted to touch on was as a father. As a father, my son turns 13 this month. He's asking me every day, can I go on Facebook now? No. Can I go on Facebook now? No. But I kind of set out the goal that I would try to build something that would support him when he actually had to go through that. And so we partnered with Mark Brackett from Yale, and we learned a bunch of things. One of them is developmental age matters. Our flows for bullying all use the word harassment. Nobody that's 13 or 14 years old uses the word harassment. They don't even like the word report. They want to say this post is a problem. We asked them, and they said, we want our own tools to take care of the issues. We found that nobody really thinks about it in terms of bullying, but if you tell them, did somebody say mean things about you? And they went like, totally. Somebody's spreading rumors about you? Yeah, no, and it's really horrible. And it's that process of listening and listening to their language that has bring the best advances here. Emotional intelligence really matters, right? We try to build a flow that integrates that, and again, talking to people and see what they need. So we have these flows, and the language is so important. I would like this photo removed from Facebook because I just don't like it. And that's a good enough reason. It's harmful and might affect my reputation. That's what works for people when it comes to bullying. The other categories I've kind of talked about a little bit. And in this context, when you say it's harmful and might affect your reputation, we not only ask you for your emotion, but we ask you for the intensity of the emotion. And this is a more advanced form of self-regulation and awareness of feeling that you're doing for teenagers that might find themselves in the circumstance. They can be aware that they're afraid and how afraid they are. And based on that, you can give them a solution that deals with that. Now, when you talk about bullying, you think you can recognize it when you see it? No, you can't. These are all things reported, paraphrased, for the most extreme examples of bullying. He was crying today, LOL. That's easy. You better watch your back. I'm going to knock you out tomorrow. That one's easy. I feel like he just used me, but I also thought he loved me. I should have known better. Maybe one day we'll get back together. Posted by a girl, reported by a boy. So ready to go home and go to bed. Most intense bullying. I got contacts, no more glasses. And I realized on this that the thing that you have to honor is the response that people have to what gets posted. It might be a joke, it might be intended as a joke. I have some data about that. But you really have to honor how people respond to that and give them tools to deal with the situation when it comes up. So we have this flow that says, it makes sense that you're feeling afraid. There are things that you can do to help handle the situation. Things online, things offline. Have a dialogue. The most important thing is getting that connection to somebody who can support you. And we found that in all of this, most of the data flows to people that are lightweight issues. Most of it is I just don't like it, I just want to attack myself. And there's this really rich field for people to explore and learn about, how you can learn about getting along in community and expressing your emotions and being compassionate and mindful of each other in very lightweight situations where it's easy, but there's also a small percentage of very important situations where it's hard. And we do a lot of work there as well. Things that we found that are encouraging. For lightweight stuff, 60% message. For harder stuff, 25% message. Most of the time to the person who shared it, 10% to somebody they trust. We have work to do there. Parents involved. Woo, go parents. The younger they are, the more the involvement. And most of the teens use the text that we provide. The other thing that we did is we tried to develop some resources for teens in community such that they would be able to, and parents and teachers. And one of the connotation on that is, as a parent, if your teen gets accused of bullying, the first thing that we put in a PDF that you download, super low tech, is check into where you are. Because the emotions that you have and what you model for your child will make all the difference in how they respond when you have the dialogue with them. And we do these things and we write them for anybody to use. Like I talk about them and about the stuff that works, that doesn't work, because we think we have a responsibility to the community of the world to contribute back from what we're learning from supporting you. So this I learned from the parenting flows. Really important for all of the parents in the room, you already know everything you need to know to help your kids be online, but somehow technology makes us forget that sometimes. All of the rules that you have that you would apply to face-to-face, you want to apply through technology. Schools need to be teaching emotional intelligence. Also, the more we talk to teens, the more I realize they have it a lot more figured out than we do, including the people that work on this stuff. And then most of that happens is lightweight, and it's a really rich opportunity to learn to speak and to listen and to be in community. So I'm going to skip through this a little bit. So what kind of content gets reported? Can everybody read that? I had to have a reference to unicorns and rainbows. There you go. But the woman who posted this got a message back saying, hey, like this is offensive to me. And this is what she wrote back. I was sent a message from someone who saw my post. I shared it on my page because I found it funny and cute. The person expressed to me that it was inappropriate, and I wanted to say that this was not intended to offend. I apologize to everybody who found this offensive. Have a great day, everyone. And that's what you learn about this. We learned, and we have data, that when people share things, and this is for reported content, 90% their intention is positive. They thought it because they thought it would be funny, because it was important information to share, because they wanted to prove a point. And we've run this study 3 or 4 times, and we keep coming back to that 90% number. So one of the things I think we have to keep in mind as we travel this new age of technology and everything else like that is we can talk about social media and put the focus on the medium, but I think that the focus needs to be on the people that we're in relationship with, on our ownership of how we use the media that we have to communicate with them thoughtfully, and to have conscious relationships where we share what we want to share. We are patient and forgiving for the things other people share because they're identical to who we are. And we embrace and accept that they have good intentions, and if something they did in some manner hurt us, if we communicate back to them, most of the time, almost all of the time, they will understand, and you will figure out what the right thing is. Now, all of this work comes from a place like this. So I want to go back to that invitation of saying, of everything you see today, what does it mean to me? What does it mean to me as a father? What does it mean to me as a manager or a service provider inside a company? What does it mean for the work that I'm here to bring into this world, for the people I serve? Thank you.